Hey everybody, today is November the 6th. It's a very exciting day for the Splinterlands community. You're part of the Ask Me Anything. This is being recorded, and as far as I can tell, all voices that are part of it will be recorded on here. I'm looking at the map right now. We just crossed the 17-hour mark, so that timer's ticking down. So in 17 hours, the pre-sale will begin. There's currently 38 plots, regions that have been entered into the lottery for 27 spots. So congratulations to those that get it. That's an exciting thing. Or deep apologies to those that won't be able to get them, or at least at this stage. But there are 2 more pre-sales, and they are with some pretty darn good discounts. So hopefully you'll celebrate with us as we sell out and start doing as much as we can to get even more and more outsiders involved. Okay, so Matt, do you kind of want to walk through some of like here? I'll let me move this for the recording. Do you want to walk through kind of like the efforts that you've gone through to like put this lottery in, or how we came? I know we mentioned it before, but there's still a fair amount of chat about like, well, how do we make this more equitable, and why do we why are we charging for things, and how do we get to these numbers? And I know that we addressed it last time, but the audio was borked last time. So if you want to kind of start by addressing that, I know it's a question on lots of people's minds.
Yeah, I'll talk about that again, and then I also want to talk about like what to expect for tomorrow with the lottery and the pre-sale and all that stuff.
Sure.
So as far as the numbers and the amounts, so the starting point was a hopefully pretty conservative estimate about what it would actually cost us to develop the land expansion and the items and spells and everything that we've discussed. So we kind of looked at over the next 2 years out, in addition to developing the main game and new cards and sets and everything that we're already doing, now we're also taking on, this big expansion. So we, estimated how much development should cost, added some extra padding in, and then designed the pre-sale lottery around that amount. And it's just that amount, really. So we for the people who think that we're just like doing a money grab here, we could have sold lots more land, right? We could have said, 300,000 plots are available in total, right? And then sure, everyone probably would have been able to get their region that wanted it in the first pre-sale. Splinterlands, the company, may have made more money, but at the end of the day, the land plots would be less scarce, right? And therefore likely less valuable. So a main goal of this was for us to raise enough funds that we need to build all of this. But then after that, we want the land to be very scarce. We want it to be a situation where all of the Praetoria land sells out, and then any new players who want to participate in the land expansion at all, the only way they can is to get land from you guys on the market, at whatever the market rates are. And I think it's just beneficial to everyone, the less land there is. If land prices on the markets are really high and it's difficult for people to get in, that's really good. Even though Splinterlands, the company, may have made less money in the pre-sales, overall that kind of excitement and value to the players is a big win for us. So that's why we kept the amount of land available as small as possible, so we could still raise enough to fund the development.
Do you think that should be applied to cards as well, or are cards really a separate thing with a different scheme?
Right, yeah. So cards are a thing that everybody needs. So we want to grow this game significantly. We want to get a lot more players. They're all going to need cards, and if cards are prohibitively expensive, that will be a problem. So that's why we'll constantly be releasing new sets, and we do want the older versions of cards, to have more value, similar with, old Magic the Gathering cards or whatnot. But in general, like, there will be more cards released, and we'll make sure it's always the situation that new players can get cards at reasonable prices. The land is totally different than that, because land is not necessary. Players aren't going to need to have land or participate in the land expansion to participate in the game. So, we want the land to be like this very elite special thing, right? So like, there's lots that we might grow the game, we might get tons of new players in, but only a very small percentage of them may actually be able to get land, due to not being able to afford it on the market or whatever. That's kind of our goal for this. That's what I look at as like what we want to achieve. Like, everyone can come in and play, they get their cards, but then only either the big spenders or the early adopters like you guys are the ones who are able to kind of participate in the whole land thing.
Okay, so do you want to walk us through? So we did this lottery. There's now going to be 27 regions that are part of it. There are 3 regions that happen. When that timer ticks down, now people can buy the remaining 3 regions. Do you want to talk through why those things are separated, and then can you talk us through kind of like what we ought to expect for this?
Yeah, before I jump into that, I just want to say, like, with the land hopefully being a very scarce resource, if there are going to be some people that will not get regions in the region lottery, or will not get their land in the first presale. And just keep that in mind when you're deciding if you want to participate in the next presale, because even though it's a 40% discount instead of a 50% discount, if you look out in the future and you see the land being scarce and valuable, getting a 40% discount off the base price could still be really huge. And I think I think there's going to be some people who are just annoyed that they didn't get in the first presale and then just don't participate at all. Unfortunately, I think those people are going to come to regret it later on. I mean, that's obviously our goal, is to make this be as successful as possible. So I want everyone to keep that in mind. And then for people who don't get chosen in the region lottery, we have offered some incentives, like a premium placement in the second round, so you're pretty likely to get your region then, ahead of other new people that come in, and you'll get a free legendary totem if you participate in the other rounds. And then if you use dark energy crystals, you can also then go throw those into the Uniswap pool as a liquidity provider for the next 3 weeks, and get some free plot claims and raffle tickets on top of that. In the meantime, and then you'll also get more raffle tickets by getting your region in the second presale, since it's $1 per dollar spent, and since it will cost more, you'll actually get more raffle tickets. So I was kind of saying last time, which I guess no one could hear, unfortunately, that it's possible some people who don't get in the first region lottery might come out ahead in the end with all the other stuff that they can get by just waiting another 3 weeks.
So Dave McCoy was doing some math, which I hadn't even really thought about. But if you buy a tract, it's 850,000. So dark energy crystal. So if you come in and you buy your tract right now, it's 850,000. And that's like if you don't even bother with a pool and you just, I don't want to deal with all them, and I'm going to just do this on my own. Well, if you don't get in that first one, but then you join a pool and try it again for the second one, it's a 50,000 dark energy difference, because now you're part of a pool. There's a discount. So yes, the prices went up, but if you weren't part of a pool in first round, but now you join a pool for the second round, and you happen to win it, it's a pretty small difference. With, again, as Matt described, there's totems and potential land and the raffle tickets. So in some ways, it's a smaller difference than I even really thought of as it was. As I've been going through this math and trying to figure this out, there are ways where, it's really not that big of a difference. But I know emotionally right now where it's like everybody's anxious because the damn thing is 16 hours away, and there's more than 27 lotteries that have been places purchased. But honestly, guys, it's not going to be the end of the world. Okay.
Yeah, so you want me to talk about tomorrow?
Yeah, what the hell is happening tomorrow? Because everybody's got high emotions, and they're they're worried. They're big purchases, so it's a fair amount of money, and people are concerned. And why don't you walk us through what tomorrow looks like?
Okay, yeah. So the first thing is that the lottery is scheduled to take place 1 hour before the pre-sale starts. So it'll be at what is it, 1500 UTC time, which is 10 a.m. Eastern U.S. time. Now taking into account daylight savings time having ended. So at that point, the lottery will end. No more entries can be placed, and then the winners will be drawn. And as we mentioned in the post, it will be based on the first block data in the first block that's produced after that time on the Hive blockchain. So it will be provably fair, and we aren't going to be able to control the outcome in any way. But at that time, I mean, basically all that will happen is if you've entered the lottery, you'll receive a pop-up message that says either you got in, or unfortunately you didn't this time. If you were chosen in the lottery, then your tokens will be automatically credited to your account, and you can see that in the new inventory screen. So you'll see your region tractor plot tokens, your title, and your raffle tickets. Yeah, and those will be transferable. You can send them to Hive Engine and list them for sale in the markets and all that good stuff. So then 1 hour after the lottery is finished, then the open pre-sale will begin for the 3,000 remaining plots. And again, the screen will automatically switch on the website over to that when the time comes, and then players can purchase a maximum of 100 plots or one tract per transaction at that time until they sell out. And then again, they'll get their tokens immediately in their accounts, and can do what they will with them. And then also anyone who doesn't get picked in the lottery will have their credits or dark energy crystals instantly added back to their account. And as we mentioned, if people would like refunds for credit purchases, we will do that as quickly as we can in the same currency you used for the purchase. But again, we're really trying to encourage people to just hold those over until the next pre-sale, because as we mentioned, there's a lot of benefits to doing that.
Other kind of big picture things that you want to get across for the land sale? Maybe we should back up just a little bit. There are a couple of people that haven't heard much about it, and they're tuning in late. Do you mind talking just a little bit about why are we even doing a land sale? What are you getting for this, and why are we doing it? Why are we collecting money for it? And what's the outcome that we're looking for?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I hope there are some new people on the call that don't know all this, but the whole thing starts with like me and aggroed for the most part just trying to come up with what we think would be really cool and fun to build. I mean, that's kind of how Splinterlands started in the first place. But so that's how we came up with this whole first the idea of the items and spell cards in the battles, right? We were like, that would be a great way to add, just one more step to the battle. So hopefully won't make it take like really long, like the Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering type games, but it is a way to add a lot more depth and skill to the game. So we really like that idea. And so then on top of that, it became, okay, well, how do people get the items and spell cards? And, we could just throw them in more booster packs and sell them, but we thought that was kind of boring, I guess. So we thought it would be really cool if players could actually, craft or mint them themselves, and it would be totally up to the player base to create these cards rather than Splinterlands just selling them in booster packs. So, that kind of morphed into this whole idea of, okay, well, what if we added this kind of empire building mechanic where you have land and resources and you build buildings and you actually, you use all of that to craft these items and spell cards. So that's how, at a very high level, how this whole idea came into being. And then obviously, if we're not selling the items and spell cards and booster packs, we are going to need to get funding to build all this. So that's where the idea of the land sale comes in. So we sell the land, and after that point, it's up to all the players, all of you guys, to just go ahead and take that and sort of run your own little businesses in the game. With the end result of these businesses being the production of the items and spell cards, where all the players in the game who want to be competitive are going to need to get the items and spell cards. And as we mentioned earlier, only a small percentage are going to actually have land. So they'll have to, the others will have to buy them on the market, just like you buy monster and summoner cards now. But the difference is the only way to get the items and spell cards ever will be on the market from other players, and never booster packs, which, overall, I think we're pretty excited about how this all came together. And I think it's super interesting and unique as far as the blockchain or really any type of gaming space.
Yeah, I mean, I've used the phrase a couple times. Never in my trading card game experience, which goes back to when I was like 8 or 7. I went to school with the kid sister of the guy that created Magic. So I've known about this thing since the very, very beginning. And never did they turn to me and say, like, you know what, we're tired of printing these cards that we built our business off of. Why don't you print them instead? And that's what we're doing. So I think I'm pretty excited and pretty proud, and think that, like, this is hardcore blockchain. This is turn the profit center over to the community, and that's what I think is pretty amazing about this. So when I'm sitting here like late into the evenings, you guys should see my desk. I have like 60 pieces of paper everywhere, different colored pens, and trying to design all this crap. Like the thing that makes me really excited about all that is turning this over to the players, and I think it's revolutionary. And I've heard the answer. Well, hey, Aggie, other games have given stuff to players too, and that may be true where players can mint things, but typically they have no value. You can't trade them. It's not something that the company sells anyways. So they're like, here's this useless thing. You can create it in your own world and create as much as you want. It's all fine. But this is actually something that has value that we have traditionally sold, that we're now saying, the way that we have made money, we're now, passing that over to the players for the long term. And I think that's pretty different. So, other things that you want to cover before we start answering some questions here?
No, I don't think so. Let's get into the questions, and then if there's a break, we can talk about other things.
All right. So one of the things I want to mention is that Dave McCoy is running what's called the Last Day Pool. I promised him that I would mention this. That if you send dark energy crystals to the account Last Day Pool, and there's still spots open, then here is kind of a public pool available to anybody so that you can get into the region lottery and get a chance at the best discounts possible. Matt has offered to hold tokens for people. So in this case, I think it's Matt that's going to end up holding these cards. So, or not the cards, but the tracts and the plots and the regions, depending on how that's split. So, I don't know. That's something that you guys should consider if you're either looking to diversify, or you're looking to, you're kind of a last minute dude realizing, oh wow, look at all this people that want to go get into this land sale, and you're feeling that FOMO that a bunch of the users and players around here are feeling. Here is a public pool that you can participate in. Now, Steelman's asking, before the AMA, so if you think it's too early to ask, then you can just ignore it. Anyways, Tract is a nice square map. It's 10 by 10 and 100 plots, but regions can't be nicely divided as a square because the closest numbers are 32 by 32 equals 1024, or tracts are 3 times 3 by 1 or plus 1. So a region map will be like a special shape, or will there be additional plots not owned by players? So I'm working on what that map should look like, and and trying to, and Matt and I are meeting about it next week so that we can build some consensus and start getting some art stuff built. And yeah, how it's starting, to get a sense of what it looks like. Just imagine playing Tetris and then start thinking like having to do that 1.5 million times. Maybe not all of Tetris, but getting all those blocks in all those places, a total of 1.5 million pieces worth in all these different schemes of like, is it
150,000?
Oh, 150,000. Sorry, you're right. 150,000. It's a big shape, and it's a big puzzle, and it's not just a puzzle, but you're creating it. I do intend to create regions that are game controlled, and not like, they won't be normal things. It won't just be like more plots. They'll be kind of like special places for things like boss fights or events or different kinds of competitive things down the road where there's like capture the flag between different teams or points you have to hold or different kinds of battles or who knows what. That's pretty far down the road, all that much more complicated stuff. But I do intend to have, there's a 150,000 region or 1,500 regions being sold, but the map will be bigger. We won't keep selling pieces, but there'll be game controlled regions or squares on the map that we'll have fun events in.
Yeah, but I think the main thing is that like regions and tracks, like they're not going to be all squares or rectangles. So it's going to be, we're going to try to do a realistic, world map. And so, regions might look like states in the United States or countries in Europe. But, obviously all the same size, but all the plots will be contiguous and adjacent to each other.
Yep. All right. Question: when Splinter Talk IO front end will be updated to the latest version of the condenser for fit the hard fork updates? I didn't realize that hadn't been done. I'll go ask Eon Warped about it, who manages that. I actually got pinged on some pretty fun ideas about incorporating skins and like its own trading site. I actually have to go ask Matt about that too. But there were some neat ideas floating around about what else to do with Splinter Talk and the token for that too. And now that land is here, there aren't a ton of just free dev resources around, but I think there are some things that we might be able to do there in the like not 2 years out time frame. Tanzo, thank you for spicing up your question the way you have. Tanzo here, Bellurock Gazette. Rumor has it some of these so-called lands the lizards are not the lizards. The wizards are allowing to be doled out will have dangers on them. Would you comment? I talked about this just a little bit, but things like boss fights and things like team battles and team events and individual competitions and free-for-alls. There'll be some land that isn't for sale that the game will manage, and it won't be the same kind of like standard plots and all that, but it will be kind of this special land. Nobody owns it. You can't ever own it. It's just part of the game, but you might be able to control it and harvest some resources or get some benefits if you're the one controlling it. And what does controlling it look like will likely change depending on which of these special lands you're on. So there'll be some things like that. Quantum Nachos asked, I burned most of my dark energy crystals originally meant for land on dice and the rest in cards on the market. How much more will I make in a year on card appreciation and using in tournaments versus land that I can't use? I think that's rhetorical. I don't think that he's actually...
No, I think that's a good question, though, in the sense that, like, well, for one, obviously we can't speculate on, prices of anything in the future. But, it's totally up to everyone. Like, nobody has to buy land, right? There's not, not requiring anyone to participate in this for any reason. Obviously, there are risks involved. It's like a crowdfunding campaign. It's funding a future project. So if you feel like your funds are better spent elsewhere, whether that's elsewhere in the game or elsewhere in the world, that's totally fine. Like we're not. This is for people who would like to help fund this and get in early and take part in it, but you don't have to. And if you think there are better uses of your funds elsewhere, then that's totally fine with us. And
It's also going to be your type of fun, right? Like managing land and sort of doing the different tasks that are associated with that, of like thinking about min and maxing your resources and building buildings and growing your land and developing your castles and keeps. Like I look at that and I think that is totally my kind of game. Like I grew up playing Civilization. I spent years playing Clash of Clans. Some combination of like real-time strategy, like a StarCraft where you're building up all your buildings and advancing all the stuff. Like those are the kinds of games that, in addition to my like playing cards when I was younger and sort of the tabletop games, those are the kinds of things that I like have spent literally years playing of my life, like actual hours. It's probably in the years, or at least a year. So I think, if that sounds fun to you, then I would highly encourage you to participate. If you like Civ and Clash of Clans and, Empire Builders, then, don't just do it only to FOMO, but do it because that's your kind of fun. Because if just like this game is proof of stake and proof of time and proof of skill, if you're only doing it for one, you're going to be frustrated the whole time because it's hard to just maximize exactly one of those. And so it's okay to like make money in the game and make money for land, but if you're specifically only doing it for money and not because it's an enjoyable thing, then you might be missing out on one of the best parts of participating in a game rather than just doing things in like financial markets or something different. Michael B., you're asking if I miss out on the first lottery, any incentives to keep Dark Energy Crystal's money rather than sending it back to us? We touched on that, but do you want to give the big categories again, Matt?
Yeah, for anyone who does not get picked in the first region lottery tomorrow, if that same account then goes and purchases a region in either the second or third pre-sale rounds, they will get a premium spot in those rounds lotteries, so they'll have a much higher chance of getting a region at that point. And in addition, they'll get a free legendary totem. So and again, we have more details on that in a recent land update post where we talked about the lottery. So that's the incentive for you to just hold on to your tokens if you don't get into the lottery, or put them in Uniswap or whatever you want to do with them, and then just put them into the next lottery, the next pre-sale, which is only going to be 3 weeks out, so it's not a ton of time. So that's the incentive there. But again, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to.
Will it ever be possible to transfer the potions, or maybe better yet, make them a token to sell? Will you ever be able to tokenize or sell potions?
That's not something, something we've been asked a lot, but not something we have at this time planned on doing. So the potions are really just like incentive for players to get packed, really. So you have these potions and it's like, oh, you might as well, buy some more booster packs. So they're really like booster pack, at least the legendary and alchemy potions are like booster pack purchase incentives, which is how we look at it. I won't say that it will never happen, but it's just not something we are planning on right now.
Okay. Palikari has this. Can we please have some kind of idea of how much land a particular level deck may need to purchase to be competitive in the new expansion? Also, what kind of cost can we expect there to be involved in producing and then maintaining that land and its resources? This is the general question we need answered for all players at all levels before they can commit to something that is way into the future. I don't think it is too much to ask to get some kind of idea on this in general. Is the question I was trying to ask in the AMA. So, first off, I want to, before going into that, you don't have to have any land. The game will continue operating, right? It'll still, you'll still have tournaments, you'll still have battles, you'll still, have your summoners and monsters, and you'll still be fighting. So you do not have to own a single piece of land. It is all optional and additional to the game. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but I also want to address, because he says below that we have not even tried to answer this question. But on the last AMA, maybe it was that you couldn't hear me in the recording, but we saw this question and answered it very specifically, and the answer is still the same. And the high level answer is, like you said, you don't need to have any land. You don't need to participate at all to be still competitive in the game, in battling. And then as far as like details on the land, those details are not available right now. And that's the whole point of the big discounts for people who are helping fund this early. It's like a Kickstarter campaign or something for a new product that is going to be built. So, and if that's not cool with you and you don't want to invest in something early before you know all this information, then that's fine, and don't. Just wait until it's released and you have all the information that you want, and then you can take part if you decide to take part or not. But right now, if you're taking part in the land, it's because you have faith that we will build, that we will build it, and that it will be built well, in a way that works well, and that the costs and requirements are reasonable, to make a fun and interesting product that a lot of people will want. So that's the main thing. Like if you expect that we will be able to deliver on that, and you want to get involved early with a big discount, that's what the land pre-sale is for. If you don't, and it sounds like Palakari might not want to, and that's totally fine, just wait. We don't. No one's required to participate in any of this.
All right. Raphael is asking, will you need dark energy crystals to build certain things on your land, or will it only be for speeding it up? This is kind of a funky one, because this too we haven't decided. So whatever we say is still TBD. So the speeding up, we're pretty confident. I mean, that allowing players to burn dark energy crystals to get a speed boost, I think, is awesome, because it's basically an infinite like real sink for dark energy crystals, and unlike in other games where it would just benefit you, if it's a burn, it benefits everybody. So I'm pretty excited about that one. Matt and I float around different ideas of maintenance and staking. So one approach that I've been thinking about a lot is, you stake dark energy crystals into your buildings. And so just like cards, if you end up destroying your building later or something, you could go get that dark energy crystal out of it. But at least for some period of time, you would have to stake it in there. And it would be like, scaling as buildings level up. So maybe there's some small burn or something that's part of that too. Like, all these details are TBD, but at least you have some thoughts of potentials and possibilities. Nothing is set in stone. Question: when the clock strikes 0, will the game refresh for everyone and then we start buying land?
The game, the whole web page won't refresh, but if you're actually looking at the land shop page, when the timer hits 0, it'll automatically switch to the land purchase screen. So you can just go, and if anyone comes into the site after that, it'll just go directly to the land purchase screen, so you can just start purchasing. So you won't have to like note or refresh or anything. It'll just switch automatically.
So, can you just buy one plot? So, Sergeant Dan, if you want to buy one plot at the lowest price possible, or at least a potential to get in, then you can go join Dave McCoy's, I forget what it's called, Last Day Pool, or what Matt Clark just nicknamed Llama Pool. Or you can buy one tomorrow at 11 Eastern. Actually, do you want to talk about the daylight savings thing real quick?
Yeah, we mentioned that in the update post today. So when we first announced the times, we didn't take into account daylight savings time for U.S. people. So it was listed as 12 noon Eastern U.S. time. But in reality, because of daylight savings time ending, it will be 11 a.m. Eastern time in the U.S. The UTC time and the countdown clock on the website are all, they have been and still show the correct time, so nothing's changed there. It's just that the time that we ported for Eastern U.S. time zone was incorrect and not taking into account daylight savings time ending.
So Lewis88 is saying hexagon maps would be awesome. One of the first things I did, I like Settlers of Catan a lot, so I was looking at trying to not just make the outline of the shape a hexagon, but the actual board pieces hexagons. And what I realized is that when you try to create a 10 by 10 grid, you can do as squares, but if you want like a symmetrical hexagon thing, it's odd numbers. So you would have, when I did my count, it was 91. So I don't know how to sell you a track that's 100 squares and put it into just pure hexagons that, when lined up, make 91 hexagons, like pieces or plots or claims. So I think we'll end up having to do squares for like the grid and how we're going to go line up the grid. But as Matt's talked about, some of the shapes of the individual pieces of land in a region or a tract may not necessarily have to be exactly just a pure perfect square. And like I think it was Raphael that suggested you can't getting you can get 1,000 plots in a square, but it doesn't come from your tracks being 100 by 100 or 10 by 10 and 100 plots. It then gets weird to go try to put the region together like that. So this is the dance, and this is why I have a stack of all these multicolored papers, and why we're gonna go talk about this next week. Yeah, Settlers. I guess that's not Settlers of Catan, but I do like that map and that Splinterlands gerrymandering. I always love 2D civilization style maps myself. Hexagons would be awesome. Another reason, is this a question? It does look like one. Another reason why I've stayed out of the land presale is because of the incredibly ridiculous tournament power restrictions for decks that were more than reasonably competitive to play. So instead of actually improving the situation, you added gasoline to the fire by making them even more restrictive to the point where you have 40-player fields. Do you actually want the average player to play this game or just whales? Add to that that now anyone that does not upgrade to lands will have an unplayable set of cards accounts without the use of add-ons. Well, that's not true. You still don't need the land. It is beneficial to have items and spells, but you could theoretically never buy them and just play with your summoners and monsters, and you'll miss out on some of that aspect of the game, but and you'll probably be limited in some ways because you won't be able to respond, but you won't be forbidden from playing. As for some of the tournament power, actually I think for the regular foil ones, I actually think that it's working pretty well and as intended. I made the price to enter a tournament, or what your deck, so the deck payout might be 100,000. Your deck, what your collection would have to be is that same number. And I think that ends up as a pretty good measuring stick. And again, this game has a combination of proof of skill, proof of time, and proof of stake. So by combining proof of stake through the collection power and getting a handle on proof of time and proof of skill by what league you're in, I think those two things in conjunction with each other have actually done a really nice job for the regular foil tournaments. For the gold foil tournaments, which I only changed for this 2-week period, I put in something extremely low last time for the first one because I didn't have my mind around it. For this one, I did something that didn't work as I intended. My math was off. And so because of how I was calculating things, my target was something like you have to own 10 to 15% of the cards to participate, which I consider, even though they're gold foil, that's actually an extremely low point to me of 10 to 15% of the cards. But there's some abnormalities where my math was off. It wasn't horrifically off, but in some cases it's as low as 5 or 6%, and in other cases it's as high, I think the highest was 26%. So it's a little bit all over the map there because I had a calculation error. It's not the total end of the world because in general it's just more of a tight competitive tournament. It's not exactly where I want it to be. So in the next set, I'm likely to, I have to look to see if the ones that are super low I'll change and bring up. I think some of those are like the biggest ones that I purposely capped lower just because the payouts didn't match. So some of them might actually stay at that 5 to 10% range. But in general, I'm targeting 10 to 15%. And I don't think that's an absurd requirement or request or anything. It's just, this is what it takes to get into that tournament. And you don't have to buy cards. You can go rent cards. Watch which ones you rent, because it doesn't always help you to just get one gold foil legendary, because it'll count whether or not those legendaries are allowed in a tournament. But in some cases, for a couple pennies, you can get some giant gold foil legendary card and satisfy all of the requirements. So I don't end up feeling all that bad about saying you'll pay 3 cents, but now you have a chance to win $30 to $300. So I still feel like that ratio is pretty darn okay.
I'd say overall the main takeaway is that tournaments, we constantly tweak the settings and the things on an ongoing basis, and we listen to player feedback, and we try to make a wide array of tournaments that kind of for the different groups of players in the game. And we'll continue to tweak those as we go forward to try to find setups that work the best.
Tanzo, once the lands have been granted and the crystals have been counted, how much will the wizards themselves have to do with the internal governance of each region? Follow-up question, will smaller holders of land have a recourse for vacant or tyrannical region leaders? Go for it, Matt.
Okay. I mean, I know there's been a lot of concern or questions around governance, and that's, in addition to all these things, something that hasn't been fully figured out yet, and it's part of building and designing this entire system. So, it obviously we're not going to try to create a situation where someone who has 50+% of a region can somehow do all this bad stuff to everyone else in the region, right? We're not going to do anything like that. So we're going to do our best to design this in such a way where participants in a region can work together to make certain decisions and decide how certain things should be done, but not in such a way where one group can
fork off the rest.
Yeah, or just like it won't be a situation where someone could just like decide to charge ridiculous taxes and just take money from everybody else. That would be ridiculous, and we would never do anything
Yeah,
like
I
that. So
think the goal is to make governance a positive. And so really well governed areas are going to be growing faster and better than poorly governed areas. So in the race aspect, how well you work collaboratively as a team will benefit you over the long term. But just going faster isn't the same as actually hurting you. I think it's important that bad management doesn't hurt players, like, rob them of their things. Um, so, I'm imagining a system where there are some benefits, and how spread out those benefits are is sort of up to the different regions. Um, there's no negative. It's just, what system do you want to participate in, and how beneficial is it, and does it encourage collaboration? Do you not need the collaboration? Just, people can kind of figure out what they want in their own regions and have it be in such a way that um, it isn't actually harmful, which is very different from may not be quite as beneficial. A well-run region should be doing better than a poorly run region, but it shouldn't be an actual negative to the players. And so that's the mentality of trying to make all that work. Cryptomancer is asking, will raffle tickets be awarded at the same time as the lottery results, or will they be given out later? Will they be immediately tradable on Hive Engine, or only allowed to be stored in-game at the beginning?
yes, raffle tickets will be awarded immediately for anyone who gets a region in the lottery, or when you buy the land at the pre-sale, you'll get your raffle tickets immediately in your account, and you can view them in the inventory screen. And they should be immediately tradable on Hive Engine, barring any technical issues that I will be on hand to resolve. So yeah, we should have raffle tickets, on the market right away tomorrow.
For Yabapmatt, for groups that deposit their region tokens with you for safekeeping, how are you handling it? What information are you asking from them? And how are you handling situations like disputes or unexpected deaths of pool organizers?
So, I mean, that's going to be up to people who ask me to handle their tokens for them. It's not me dictating anything. If someone wants me to handle their tokens, then they can tell me what they want me to do with them. I haven't got much information in the way of that from anyone who has asked me so far, but it's up to them. And the reason that they're just choosing to hold it with me is also, I would assume, because if any situation arises in which there isn't specific instructions, it will be up to my best judgment on how to handle that situation. And obviously, I'll do my best to handle any situations like that in a fair and equitable manner.
Is it possible to add quest rewards and season rewards in the treasure, the quest potions and/or the mystery potion? I think he wants more quest and season rewards. I'm not sure I understand the question. Is it possible to add quest rewards in the treasures?
Is it possible to get those, to add because currently you can't get quest or mystery potions in season and quest reward loot chests.
That seems pretty good.
I'm thinking what he's asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could.
I think that's useful. I mean, we get, as with everything, you have to go put that into the list of what are the dev priorities. And so, like, making sure land goes off without a hitch is like the mega priority right now. Adding quest or mystery potions falls behind, but I do think that's a pretty darn cool idea. Fusion Phil, I like this question. Can I start a in-game solicitation service to offer litigation to players? I think we'll start with mediation. Start with mediation, and then if it escalates, you can litigate. Question, how many lottery tickets will you get if you buy one plot for 7,500 DEC? Can you split a lottery token?
Well, so from our perspective, you can't buy one plot for 7,500 dark energy crystals. One plot would be 10,000 dark energy crystals, and you would get 10 lottery tickets. But I assume you're asking if you buy one plot as part of a region pool, and then again, that's up to the region pool organizers to decide how that works. We're just selling things at the rates that we've discussed, and people who want to organize into pools, that's great, but they got to figure out these things, and you can't split a lottery token for obvious reasons.
What if I buy a tract and someone I hate owns a castle? Can I move? Well, you own the deed to the land, and so you can exchange your land or property or rent it out to somebody. You don't have to stay. And actually,
I was going to say again, someone you hate, like owning a castle is going to be, we're going to make that beneficial to the person who owns it, but it's not going to be the type of situation where they can like cause any problems or negative effects to other players in the region or anything like that.
Questions. Will there be potions for opening lands similar to gold and legendary potions for packs?
I'm not sure we have thought about potions for the revealing of lands, but we did consider like some type of, I don't know if they'd be potions or something else, just for general use, in the lands and buildings. And once you're crafting cards, just like things that will give you better chances of getting better things in that whole process, is definitely going to be on the table when we're designing all this. I think, I guess I don't really see, a necessity or a reason for having potions specifically for opening the lands, because like I said, the existing potions, the legendary and gold ones, are sort of incentives for people to buy packs. They might get season rewards and things. They get these potions and they're like, well, I have these, maybe I should go and buy some packs, when they wouldn't have before. So it's a promotional tool for us. But I'm not sure that makes sense in the context of lands here.
If you guys feel strongly that you want them, then go to the bottom, create a potions. Somebody type that and start putting positive emojis under it if you really like that. And then when we get down there, we can see what the community thinks of that idea. We should be able to burn and pillage with enough cards. I kind of want to put some burning and pillaging into the game, but I don't want it to be with like your like permanent deed owned land. Kind of some of that PvP aspect I want to go put into game controlled land that then players are invading, defending, controlling, manipulating, whatever, holding. But I do think I want to get burning and pillaging into this. It probably won't be in the very first thing, but that's why Pretoria will be bigger than 150,000 plots. We're just only going to sell 150,000 there. Are we going to be able to place our guild buildings, or have you thought about migrating them to lands? At the very least, some interaction between them would be ideal, given that our main halls could end up value to a plot or tract and vice versa. Go for it.
What we've said in the past about that is that we do plan to have interactions between guilds and lands, but that may not be a V1 thing. And also, it would likely be something where like guild lands would be separate from player-owned lands. So there may be some of the game lands that would be set aside for the guilds, that could be potentially purchased with the guild rewards that you get in the guild tournaments that we're working on and things like that. But it would be separate and different from the player-owned lands that are used in the creation of the items of spell cards.
Question: at 10 a.m. Eastern, will the next Hive block show the winners of the lottery? So how will you know who actually wins the lottery, and how does that work with holding their assets?
Well, so that's not the data won't be in the next Hive block. We will use unpredictable data in the first hive block after that time to generate the lottery winners. And we can publish the code for that so people can look at that hive block and take the data and verify the results for themselves, so that the data itself won't actually be in the hive block, because it won't actually be generated until that block is created. And then I can update it to just add the winners as a transaction in a later block, but the plan was that anyone who entered the lottery would get a message and get their tokens in their account or their payment refunding. So that's generally how this stuff works, is that the data is not necessarily in the block on the blockchain, but it's the data that is in the block is used to verifiably generate the results. If that made sense.
Aggroed, rumor has it beyond our world exists other realities. What is the likelihood that resources generated by these lands will be tokenized and thus transferable beyond our reality and potentially into others? Tanzo, you're awesome. I enjoy having you ask questions. They're more fun than everybody else's questions. Resources generated. Yeah, these things are going to get tokenized, right? Like your Sparkstone. Can I trade Sparkstone on Hive Engine? Or is that only going to live
definitely.
in game?
I mean, all the resources. I mean, every resource that's involved in the lands will be tokens, just like, say, dark energy crystals, so you can transfer them beyond our reality, as you put it. Trade them on external markets, and I'm sure there'll be external prices and all that stuff that evolves around those. And then obviously the cards, the item and spell cards, will have that option. Just like you can currently transfer items and spell cards to ERC 721 tokens, and we're also working on doing a similar integration with the Wax blockchain in the near future. So, those cards will work just the same.
And if we end up, so next year is like all about land, but hopefully at some point that's pretty well settled, and then we start thinking what is one of the next projects. And Matt and I talked about like a tactics game, and adding, like, the game I played a ton was Final Fantasy Tactics. It's it's kind of like playing BattleTech or D&D, where you're moving pieces and firing or doing actions and things like that. I imagine that in that expansion there'll be other things that you buy to make, and some will be packs, some might be land based, some might be new lands that you combine previous resources with new resources to make stuff that works in that game. So it's usually going to be some kind of combination of new and old to make sure that the old has value, but the new is still accessible to new players. So I know that some people would say it should only be old, and then it's like, well, then how do you get new players? Then play it should only be new, and then it's like, well, how are we going to screw all the old guys out of this? So to me, it's some combination of both of those things that I think lead us to a good spot. Question regarding land: will it be an advantage or disadvantage being coastal and having adjacent ocean hexes instead of having other landowners as neighbors? Yeah, that's a good question. Matt and I still have to go figure out how we want to go deal with oceans, because they're not, you get different play styles out of this. It's like maybe there's some benefit to being on the ocean, and maybe not at first, but you can start building boats and trade routes and fishing or expeditions out there or something. But of course, it's game generated rather than player generated, so you can't like trade with your ocean. So it's kind of, how many people do you want to be interacting with? And maybe it's fewer and easier to just deal with the computer in the game rather than trying to talk to somebody that has that one resource you really want or something. It's kind of about your play style.
Yeah, I would say in general, I wasn't thinking that it would be any different really whether you are adjacent to oceans or landlocked, as far as like being an advantage or disadvantage.
Okay. Question: are you expecting to sell out in the first 5 minutes of the land pre-sale? I mean, at this point, I think yes, because we have 27 plots, or 27 regions and 38 lotteries for them. and so that number alone exceeds the 3 extra regions. So we're 8 over the total, and we still have 16 hours to go. I haven't seen the deck or the dark energy crystal liquidity pool really come down much. I have seen it some, but I haven't seen it like crater. So I think there's still some people that are waiting for tomorrow morning before they bring their dark energy crystals here. So my guess is yes, but I don't have a crystal ball. Yikes. How does an obviously play-to-win game have provable proof of skill? Doesn't the proof of stake override that every time? I would say no. I would say that a lot of people that come in here initially will say it's only pay-to-win, and then as they stay here longer, they'll see people that are incredibly talented but don't have cards. They're able to win, but they're capped. And you see people that are incredibly rich but don't know how to play. They can win, but they're capped. And so it's not enough just to have like the world's best cards. And it's not enough just to be skilled. And it's not enough just to put time in. This game is a combination of all three.
Yeah, I mean, that's an easy one in that, like, there's literal proof. You just look at the leaderboards, and there's definitely players that don't, that have way more invested into the game that are significantly lower down than players that have less invested. So it's a combination of all of them, and it's very easy to see.
Question: are there plans for raiding, attacking, or other hostile action towards other land plots? Yes, but not the ones that y'all own. Those will be kind of the in-game ones. One of the reasons why I didn't want to go with guild wars for the guild tournaments is that I want guild wars on the map. And it's not going to be there right away. That's certainly not like the number one priority. The number one priority is getting just the damn map and getting your lands functioning and some crafting buildings. But once the basics are there, then it's like, okay, what else do we add to this? And that's when we start doing, what kind of interactions can we build here, either between the game and the player, or between guilds on top of the a game controlled piece of land. So yes, but I don't. There's not going to be an option where like you've gone and spent all these resources and all these dark energy crystals staking and put in all this time, and some rich dude just kind of burns down your castle. That's not in the works. But if you are participating in some sort of guild war in a piece of land that is game controlled, and you're attempting to hold your fortress might be burned to the ground. But that is meant to be something different and in that genre than simply the land that you're buying now.
Yeah, I would say, overall it'll just be an opt-in situation.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So if and when we add that, it will be something that you can choose to participate in or not.
We need random natural disasters. It's on the list that I'd like to see, kind of just like we have rules that change, the sort of land rules that might change, or weather effects, or cycles of moons. Those kinds of things could impact production of various types. So
I would like, what a big thing I want is it's not just like a set and forget type of thing. Like you can just set some monsters and summoners in your buildings and just forget about it, and you'll produce at a certain level. But ideally, like, we want to make it so active managers who kind of know what they're doing and can have advantages. So if you're actively paying attention to what's going on and weather and different other external factors, you might want to make adjustments that can keep your production efficiency rate as high as possible.
Yeah,
and I like it. One of the things I like is something where players figure out a lot of that stuff, so we don't necessarily just like publish exactly all the different things that can happen and what the best way to handle it is, but it's something like players figure out, which sort of mimics a real world scenario, and then players can go and make posts and videos and talk about things that they've discovered and tips and tricks and stuff like that.
Nate and I have some pretty neat designs that we've been scoping out for that. So Matt hasn't even seen them yet, but we got some ideas that we think will be pretty good for rewarding engaged, thoughtful interaction with the land, and how that might work. So we'll see. I did discuss last day pool, Dave. Thanks for putting that together. So if you're a last minute person looking to get into the lottery, but you don't want to go for a full region yourself, Dave McCoy is running a public pool and the tokens will be held by Matt. So it's tough to get a much more fair scenario than that. Question: do you have any plans to have different size battlefields in the future? In other words, adding more slots to submit monsters by 1 to 3 more. So in ranked, could you ever see us battling with 8 monsters, Matt?
I would love to see that. Maybe just like a rule set or something where it increases the monster size or whatever. But again, that all comes down to priorities and resources and all that stuff. And obviously, it'd be a good amount of work to update all the user interfaces and mobile and everything to add more monsters. So even though I think that's really cool and would love to see it, that's not something on the road right now.
Question: when players request for land to be in close proximity to others, it makes sense if you control different land that you can request it be close together. Will requests to be near another player or group have to be mutual, or can it be unilateral? So one, I've been puzzling around how to actually do this, and I think part of why I like having more plots available or more regions available on the map than what are for sale is that it leaves kind of some of these empty spots on the map where it's a little bit easier to go gerrymander the districts that you guys are looking for. And so if you can pick which corner you want to be in and you can kind of pick some guidelines, I think if there's extra map spaces, there's more of a chance that everybody gets what they're looking for. Maybe it won't be perfect, but this is some of what I'm imagining. And especially if we do it, before the whole damn thing runs out, where now you can start claiming regions, there should be lots of available land out there so that everybody can figure out what they want. So my hope is that we have region placement ready to go before the entire land sale has actually sold out. That would be my hope. And if we don't get there, then maybe we have to add even additional regions. Again, not for sale, but there's just kind of more places that you could pick and choose to be part of, where you're like, I want that plot because it's next to Biz. And maybe there's a chance where Biz has a chance to say, well, Aggie's going to be there. To hell with this. I'm moving to the other side of the map. And so I imagine that there'll be some time to sort of place some pieces and replace pieces until some time where we say, all right, this is final. Whatever we see here, this is what you're going to get. Something like that is what I'm imagining. But, Matt and I still have a lot more to talk through about how the whole land placement will work. Will the castle affect the entire region with bonuses or just the tract? In my brain, I'm envisioning the keep impacts tracks and regions are impacted by castles, but that's still TBD. We need swap pools for each resource pair with small fees for liquidity providers. One of the smart contracts that I want to write for Hive Engine is actually the liquidity pool one. So that's on the list, and maybe this ends up in there. So I've been thinking about that.
Or someone could just make a service that handles the converting to Hive and converting to the other token for you.
You mean for putting it on Ethereum?
No, I mean since all the resources will be at the minimum tradable on Hive Engine, by default they'd be tradable for Hive. So if you wanted to go from one resource to another, someone could just make a service or something that you just send your resource, say what the output resource would be, It trades your resource for hive on that market, and then it trades the hive for the other resource and sends you the result.
Yep. A question regarding oceans. If more continents are added, how will land on Pretoria interact with land on other continents? Yep, it might be.
I would just leave that one as a TBD. I mean, that's really far out.
Okay, we can do
talking.
that.
It's getting a bit late, so maybe just a few more.
Weren't we going to see previews of land this AMA? Hey, Nate, do you have pictures of land that you want to put in here? I'm going to unmute you, too.
Did you hear that?
Oh, I unmuted you. Nate, hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
All right, so do you want me to put any limitations on what I share?
That's a question for Matt. I never do, but...
No, share everything, but just everyone keep in mind that, like, you know, we have no idea if or how any of the stuff Nate shares is actually going to be used. So don't read into any of that. You know, it's just very
All
early
right,
on
so
at this point.
I mean, FYI, I have samples of a bazillion different things, spanning from Guild Wars to land to everything. So
I would just focus on, like, you know, pick and choose a few cool looking things that will get people excited for the visuals.
Okay,
particularly for land, because we can do a Guild Wars or a Guild tournament or Brawls update like maybe next time. But I think everybody's really focused on land right now.
All right, and no, just excuse the watermarks. Any images I share are watermarked a little bit just to preserve Splinterland's proprietary whatnot. So this next image will be just some sketches, some concept art for vectors that we've been working on, and as you see the transition from low level buildings to higher level buildings. So I am uploading that right now. Something that let's see, icons. Let's try. If you want to see what a mid-level, mid-rarity forest land with a sawmill on it and resources that it produces, here is something of what that would look like. So in that image, it's a mid-level forest with a mid-level sawmill. So the sawmill that you get initially will be, just a little tiny building. That's about a mid-level building. It gets much larger once you get up to level 8, 9, 10. It produced the wood that you see right there in the middle, and once it's refined, you might end up with blocks of timber, something that's more usable for constructing future buildings. We could talk about land. Something that I think has been touched on in one of the blog posts is the fact that some land might be occupied. So if it's occupied, that means you got to fight the monsters there. So this might be a sample of maybe a goblin outpost in the distance. You'll probably have to create an outpost yourself to, put a garrison on there and fight the monsters that you see. Those who are lucky enough to end up with land that has magic in it, here's let me see, I think this is hills that have been imbued with, I think this is dragon magic. So I don't know, I can go on and on, but I don't know if you want to save some of this for the next AMA since it's getting late, or what you guys want to do.
I haven't seen any of these, and they're cool, so I'd appreciate a few more.
Yeah, hopefully you guys get a sense of like the degree that we just trust Nate. And it's like, Nate, go make something awesome. Here's the guidelines. Now it's just do your thing, Nate. We're blessed to have you here. This is awesome.
Let's see. So what else do I got here? Well, this is more for Guild Wars, but I mean, it looks similar to what you would see with land. In fact, the whole brawls or guild wars, the tournaments that we're working on are proving to be a foundation. Uh, so I don't know if you guys realize how much of yeah, we're using that as a foundation to build some of the beginning parts of the land expansion. So this right here, even though it's not directly related to land, it does reflect, what a guild building would look like on the new landscape. So all the guild buildings are going to be switched over to the new system that we're going to use for land. So the backgrounds are going to have that very picturesque painted look. The buildings will have a vibrant vector appearance to it. And what's great about that is down the road, vector buildings will be possibly someday animated, just like the resources and everything else. And we're quite. I personally am very excited at the prospect of adding a touch more vibrancy and gameplay to Splinterlands. So I'd love to see more things moving around the screen for you guys. Um, what else do I got on here? A lot of this other stuff that I have has to do either with tournaments or with mobile, or heck, I even have some of the preview art for the merchants for either the guild store and the SPT base store. I have some of the combat rule graphics that maybe Yab will implement someday. You guys could guess as to what those will do.
Do you have
If you
infinite
keep
trample?
saying these things, you have to share them.
Oh,
Do you have
okay.
infinite trample yet?
Um,
This is
sure.
this is
You
my
guys guess. Yaba's already seen these, but the rest of you can guess what the heck these combat rules are going to do someday when they get added to the game.
the zombie
Um,
hand is amazing.
let's see. If you guys want to see the merchant for the the guild shop, this is what he's going to look like.
Nice.
Um, I kind of went a little Deadpool on this one, so it's kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit, but maybe not. Depends how creative Chris Roberts gets. This guy was intended to be a merchant for the SPT tokens. What else I got? Meanwhile, we can't forget mobile. Again, Yaba's seen that, but this is we're hoping to hopefully incorporate some sort of what do you call it? Transactions in the mobile app. Right now, there's not a lot of trading and buying and selling going on, but someday, hopefully, you'll see that screen um, in the mobile app. What else do I got here? Well, shoot, I don't think you want to share this stuff. This is Chaos Legion stuff.
No.
Um,
That's all top secret.
yeah. Um, yeah, a lot of the stuff that I had ready to show is, maybe for next time, when if we get closer to talking about the guild tournament stuff, or I mean, each AMA, I don't mind having a small batch of land stuff ready to share. There's a lot of stuff that that we could share that is ready to show as little to whet people's appetites somewhat.
I'd like to
I don't
request
have it ready right now.
seeing more like land card frames images, like the one that was in the expansion post.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can work on having that ready on one of the upcoming AMAs. We could just
Some
delve into
different
that.
types of plots of the different terrains, just in their card frame and stuff.
Absolutely. So yeah, next AMA or the one after that, no problem.
All right.
There's
Any questions?
I did. Let me scroll back before Nate started his show and tell, and there were like 2 questions left. So I think these are going to be. Will boss monsters have any consideration in land? I mean, I imagine that I'm imagining that boss monsters, maybe not all of them, but some of them will actually take up like a whole region, and that's like the entire point of the region is to fight the boss monster. So that's something to consider. Um, and I think that might have been one of the last questions.
I'd
Anything
like
you?
to, I mean, depending upon, priorities and things that come up, I'd like to have at least the first boss fights stuff live before the land stuff is all live. So I expect not waiting like a year for the first boss fights to happen. And then we'll add them into the land later when that's available. I already have a number of ideas and plans kind of getting started for a certain bear whale that I've heard about.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's going to be enough of a little teaser. This should make for a pretty exciting day tomorrow. Um, I hope that you guys are everybody that um, you know. I hope you all have wonderful luck tomorrow, and we'll see how it all plays out. But and then I would still encourage you, even if you miss out on the 50% discount land, hopefully the 40% plus um, 40% plus potentially time in the pools and raffles and the totem, that you'd think, well, maybe it's not that big of a difference after all. And hopefully this is all good for the game. So, no tensions are high, but I know excitement is super high right now, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And I'm looking forward to an exceptional day tomorrow. I hope you guys are excited and pumped for it. There's 15 hours and 38 minutes left, and this land sale is moving along. We'll be able to talk a little bit more about the guild brawls not starting next week, but we'll talk more about that next week. Some tournament changes, especially for the gold foils, I think are in the works in terms of the collection power settings. And I don't know. There's a lot of things that are going really well around here. And one of them, I know I harp on this, but I'm just so incredibly grateful to the community for this. You guys are doing an awesome job welcoming new players, and I try to do it too. I try to, whenever I see a new player join, I try to say, welcome, and you guys are doing it as well. And this whole thing is a network effect, and the network effect only grows if people want to be here. So thank you for making an effort to be kind and welcome players in. And I know things get heated at times, and that's okay. I'm also grateful that you guys keep the noise and the BS out of general and leave it in things like Mavericks or deep dives, where it's a little bit somebody that's a little bit more ready. I think that's more appropriate. So I'm gonna go delete that quantum. We're recording this for posterity. Keep that out of the recordings, please. All right. Anyways, anything you want to add, Matt?
No, I'm nervous, just as I'm always, for any technical issues that might come up tomorrow. But please, if there are any, be patient, and we'll make sure they get fixed and handled properly. But I've done a number of tests with copies of the production data and everything, and I'm really excited to see how everything goes over the next couple months.
Alrighty. Well, that's it for tonight. Many blessings of good fortune tomorrow, and really excited for this. Thank you all for attending, and let's go have an awesome land sale tomorrow, and we'll spread the word. And we're getting some help to spread the word, and there'll be some more details about that coming up. Anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful and excellent weekend, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.